Good morning, everybody, and warmly welcome to the Nobel Peace Center and this breakfast seminar, A Moment of Truth. And a very, very special welcome to Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Maria Ressa. We're so happy to have you back in Oslo. Welcome. I also want to welcome and thank our cooperation partners on this event, PEN Norway and IFPIM, the International Fund for Public Interest Media. Thank you. And thanks to all of you who wanted to spend this June morning with us here today. This event has been fully booked more than a week. So you who are here are lucky, and we are lucky to have you here and spend this morning with you. Thank you. My name is Ingvild Bryn-Rambøll. I'm head of information here, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's event. The last few days have shown us that the old proverb, truth is the first casualty of war, is as true as ever. And it makes our title, A Moment of Truth, sound more like wishful thinking than a description of the times we are living in. But here at the Peace Center, we are working on inspiring hope. And lucky for us, Maria Ressa has many years of experience conveying hope in hopeless times. And quite suitable for today's topic, we are sitting inside the echo chamber, a photo exhibition by the Swedish photographer Erik Johansson, commenting on the information ecosystem we are all a part of. Here, the filter bubbles and the echo chambers become something visible and real, and something we are able to burst or climb out of. The exhibition is inspired by the Nobel Peace Prize to Maria Ressa and her Nobel lecture in 2021. I reread the lecture last night, and it's actually quite scary how right you were, Maria. Among a lot of other things you said, we are at a sliding door moment where we can continue down the path we're on and descend further into fascism, or we can each choose to fight for a better world. So I think that's why we're all here now. Here at the Peace Center, we always work very closely with the laureates during the whole year after the announcement. And in 2022, we worked with Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov on launching a 10-point plan to address our information crisis, with 10 action points to support journalism and disinformation, hate speech, and abuse online. And in the years that have passed, the topic highlighted by the 2022 prize have continued to come back to our programming here, as they are so closely connected with everything we do, especially regarding the education of younger generations in active citizenship and democratic resilience. So the connection between press freedom and freedom of speech, democracy, and peace was made evident by the prize to Ressa and Muratov. And Maria's lecture was, as I said, full of warning signs and alarm bells, the arms race in the information ecosystem, the spread of lies and hate online, the attacks on journalists, and disruption of the media economy. And today we see that many of the things she warned about is happening around us. Democracy is in decline, freedom of speech and press freedom are under multiple attacks, and the whole concept of truth is more and more challenged. So it is good reason to pay very good attention when Maria Ressa enters the podium in a short while. After her keynote, she will sit down in a talk with Jørgen Vatne Frydnes, the director of PEN Norway and the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. But first, please welcome the CEO of Rappler, the professor at Columbia University, co-chair of IFPIM and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Maria Ressa.
Oh my God! Thank you. Yung mga kababayan ko, nasan kayo? Yahoo! The Filipino community is here. You know, first of all, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Ingvil. And then, these buildings, thank you also. Thank you, Jürgen. I mean, this has been like, well, first, the Nobel Peace Prize gave me back my right to travel. Sorry, Philippine Supreme Court. I mean, but also Oslo, the cleanest water ever. Thank you. It's really good to be here and to be back here. Every time something changes, somehow I wind up here again. The last time I was here was September 2022, when Dmitry Muratov and I came up and we announced from here, with the help of our partners, the 10-point action plan. You'll see that. I have so much to tell you, so I'm going to go quickly because I want to have a conversation with you and with you guys. So first, let me say, it's significantly worse since 2021, right? Significantly worse. That meant you didn't act when I told you to act, right? And I hope you, and I will call you the guardians of democracy, I hope you do not lose hope at this moment, because now it's act or die, right? In 2021, we could have prevented where we are. I joke all the time because in the Philippines, we have in 2022 had a new election. Under the time of Rodrigo Duterte, we went from hell, we're in purgatory now, and our last midterm elections actually showed us that, it can get better. But as we move from hell to purgatory in my country, people in the global north, I hope not Norway, but the United States for sure, they're on their way to hell. And it will take the world with us, right? So that is, let me take you to facts, truth, and trust. This was in 2021, in how I ended, that, without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. We can't begin to solve existential problems like climate change because we can't even agree on basic things. If you can't do that, you cannot have democracy. The journalists in the room, raise your hand. Oh, yes. Okay, very good, excellent. And so we can't have our journalism, we can't have democracy. Government, you cannot govern when you don't have these three things. So I feel sorry for anyone in government. And if you are a woman, in 2017, women, journalists and politicians were attacked at least 10 times more than men. I see Amandeep, the tech envoy of the UN Secretary General, as well as a co-partner in the leadership panel of the Internet Governance Forum, which is happening at the same time. I feel like I've been chasing my shadow because we have to look for solutions. So you've heard the dire problems we have in the Nobel lecture, but now let's go where we are. So I'm going to dive. 2022, this was the question I asked Filipinos. And this was the book that came out the same week as ChatGPT. And it's this question, and I ask it again, because now you in the global north, you in Norway, Norway is so nice. You have to ask yourself this: what will you sacrifice for the truth? Because the only kind of government that will survive without facts, truth, and trust is a dictatorship. And we have none of those three. The book has been translated to about 25 different languages. And it's funny how language and culture is reflected in the title, right? Like the French, very aggressive, much more than Pinoys, resist the dictator. The South Koreans, this is Japanese. Anyone can read the Japanese? So it doesn't even include dictator in the title. South Korean, well, you know what happened in South Korea just this year. Mandarin. Poor Taiwan. Taiwan is waiting to see what will happen. This I love. Anyone know which one this is? Georgia. Exactly. Over 210 days of daily protests in Georgia right now, right? Like direct, daily, through the most, the coldest months. And Zia Amaglobeli, the first journalist who was arrested, when she was behind and couldn't speak, she held up the cover of the book, which you can see is like it's got the most different kind of design. It's pink. So in the protest, they began using it. But I like this one. This just came out in April. Mongolia, sandwiched between China and Russia, right? Pretty cool. Let's just go to the tech. And I'm going to summarize all the problems in 2 slides. Artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor is it intelligent, right? And this technology has been around since 1956, and it was actually coined by a marketer, right? Please be aware of the hype you are living in. And all of this kind of renewed in 2023, more than 23 billion invested in generative AI. All of that is connected to what happened in the social media landscape, the toxic surveillance model. I called it toxic sludge in the Nobel lecture. That was the hardest speech ever to write. And I think I gave them a heart attack because I didn't give it to them until like an hour before. And they translate it, you know? But anyway, so the toxic surveillance model, here are the harms. You've heard about some of these things already, right? But let's just go over them. Colonialism didn't die, it moved online. Surveillance capitalism. We didn't have that phrase, that business model, until 2019 when Shoshana Zuboff actually wrote a 750-page book describing that. What does that mean? All your data scooped up. Essentially, the social media companies were able to clone us online, right? They say, they have these fudgy words like, no, we will make a model of you using machine learning. Model, replace model with clone. Consumer Reports said on Facebook alone, more than 2,300 huge data sets of each of us. Now imagine if you're cloned, and then AI comes in and takes all of our clones, and that becomes the motherlode database for micro-targeting. Micro-targeting is not advertising. Micro-targeting is taking your weakest moment to a message and selling it. We are commodified. Data privacy is essentially a myth. And if you're from the global south, it's digital colonialism, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. Biased and oppressive AI ecosystems, because in the past, you can have one editor have their bias, right? That would be one story. Now multiply that by tens of millions of times when it's an algorithm. The exploitation of data workers. This is, again, largely the global south cleans this up for the global north. But more than that, this has been rolled out. What did they do? They hacked our biology, right? Big tech showed us one good thing. Regardless of language, culture, or geography, human beings can be manipulated in the exact same way. Lies spread 6 times faster. That's 2018 MIT. That's in the Nobel lecture. 6 times faster than facts, which are really boring. And in the Philippines in 2017, if you lace it with fear, anger, and hate, it spreads even faster. So, this one we don't really talk about much, the environmental damage from resource-intensive AI operations. If you work with the servers that have to be cooled by the water, your wonderful water in Norway, right? Like, they're going to different countries around the world to take that water away from human beings to build and cool this. The impact, 5 to 15 prompts is half a liter of water. That's an Indian digital company in Goa that estimated that. And then finally, the last one. Sorry to wake you up with such doom and gloom, but I will leave you with 3 solutions. It's the destruction of agency. Are you free to make your own choices? Because when they exploit the way we feel, it changes the way we see the world, it changes the way we act, it changes the way we vote. And if you look at it from the cellular level, what we are seeing in March this year in Sweden, VDEM rolled out numbers of 72% of the world is now under authoritarian rule. We are electing illiberal leaders democratically. Does that sound familiar? And so, destruction of agency and democracy. We're walking into it. We are literally Pavlov's dogs. It's very real for me. And instead of telling you what the science is, because it's in the Nobel lecture, but also you can go to Rappler, I'm going to tell you my experience with it. This is hard fought and hard won. Underneath social media, around the time that the Nobel Committee, thank you, Jürgen, that the Norwegian Nobel Committee chose journalists, I was getting an average of 90 hate messages per hour. I thought the world had changed. And then I got arrested, then I really knew the world got changed. In 2019, the weaponization of social media was followed by the weaponization of the law. In 2019, in 14 months, I had 11 arrest warrants. I kept getting arrested. But it's funny, every time I got arrested, our community came together and crowdfunded our community, not just in the Philippines, but around the world. There would be a spike of donations, and my sales team would love it, but I kept telling them this is not a sustainable business model. But here's the good news. It's almost a decade after Rodrigo Duterte took office, right? But just last week, we got news that my 10th out of 11th case, that we just won it. So now my directors... The poor directors of Rappler couldn't travel either, right? So today, in order to stand in front of you, and again, thank you, Norway, in order to even make it here for the Peace Prize, I had to ask our courts for approval to travel. And since the Peace Prize, they haven't said no. So you must be really powerful. Or we've moved from hell to purgatory, right? So that's the first part, but here's what's happening with generative AI. Is anyone here who uses chatbots, ChatGPT? Have you used ChatGPT? Most of you, but not all of you. We think this is going to be the way the internet is shifting. It's fundamentally shifting in front of our eyes, and you'll see some of the solutions that we have. But in generative AI, what does that mean? Again, very personal. If you see me on video telling you to buy crypto, it is a deep fake. I did not tell you to buy crypto. My most recent deep fake, by the way, that crypto one comes from a Russian scam network. We traced it, right? And then my most recent one is I'm telling people with diabetes to throw away their insulin. Don't do that either, right? You do, no facts, no truth, no trust. But let's go further how much more dangerous it is. The scams, right? And the big tech companies exploit our weaknesses as human beings to be able to make more money. In fact, one of the things that the technology is doing is changing the goodness of humanity, right? Because this does not reward it. If you're a nice guy, nice guys should not finish last, or girl. Anyway, all right, so September 2022, from this stage again, I said we launched this along with the Nobel Museum, a 10-point action plan. And this was largely targeted to the EU because the US was lost in space then also. But the EU was debating the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. But at that same time, what was big tech doing in the EU? It was spending 125 million euros to lobby for what they wanted. But here are the three buckets of that. The first, and these are the solutions, right? Stop surveillance for profit. 2, stop coded bias. Because if you were a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are an ethnic minority, if you come from the global south, if you are black or brown, if you're marginalized in any way in the physical world, you're further marginalized online. That is in the code. Stop coded bias. And finally, the last one. I'm not so sure journalism will survive in the next year. But journalism is the antidote to tyranny. No offense to influencers. But I challenge you, will you be okay to go to jail to protect the public sphere? This is the world we live in today. And the entire infrastructure, our public tech stack, is corrupted because journalists have a set of standards and ethics, the incentive structure encourages corruption. It is an Excel sheet, an accountant sheet. All right, so here's the thing, because we want to go to the Q&A. How do you rebuild trust? How do we do it? I'm going to tell you the 3 pillars of Rappler, and we formed Rappler in 2011, was the seed of the idea. But these are our 3 pillars, and our solutions come from the 3 pillars, right? Journalism, community, and technology. My elevator pitch to someone I pitch for, right? One of our partners was, we build communities of action, and the food we feed our communities is journalism. Let's take journalism. What are the potential solutions now? This is something, again, from our partners. In 2019, at the Global Media, it was the Media Alliance in London. I walked out and I was facing protests from Duterte supporters. We launched the International Fund for Public Interest Media. What is this? It is a fund that is multilateral, that gives money directly to core functions of a news organization. We don't need training as much. Frankly, sometimes it's colonialism when you try to train us in the Global South, because we know how to do journalism. But look at what we've done since then. We launched, so we began the idea in 2019. In 2022, we launched 112 independent media organizations that we've supported. We raised $60 million in about a year and a half only. It's multilateral, right? In Chile, what was fascinating to me was that the government actually came to me and said, you know, we want to help journalism, but they don't want to take our money. I said, okay, you can give it to us, because then we can give it to them. Again, it goes back to transparency, right? But look at our stats. 93%. We need to survive. We need to make money so that we can be independent. So just a little kick gives us 93%. Had a major impact on financial stability. 63% increased their total revenues. 53% increased the earned revenue. And 88% increased reach. 57% of editorial teams run by women. And, you know, I mean, Rappler, my co-founders, there are 4 of us. Part of the reason I will spend a little longer in Norway after this is that I'm now over 60. It's so nice to get older. Anyway, so 18 to 35, I worry about the generational gap, because where you get your news determines how you vote. And where you get your news has increased the generation gap. You can see some of this in the work that we've done in Rappler and in our sister company, Nerve. This now is community, right? Journalists create content, but we are no longer in charge of distribution. Big tech is. So given that big tech spreads lies, fear, anger, and hate, what do? In 2022, this is what we did in the Philippines. And we would have launched this in 2021, except the Nobel got in the way. Almost 150 different groups in the Philippines coming together. We organized ourselves, a data pipeline where 16 news organizations, to get 16 news organizations to work together is harder than herding cats, right? It's like having 16 CEOs having to work together. Anyway, 16 news groups, everyone, there's a quota of fact checks, but this is the most important one, the second, the mesh layer. Right? The mesh layer, if you're part of it, if the Nobel Peace Center is part of that, or everyone in the Nobel Peace Center has to, on a daily basis, share one fact check, but they share it with emotion. And they cannot use anger, right? And what we found, we mapped it every week, and we found that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. One more time. Inspiration spreads as fast as anger. The goodness of who we are is there, right? And then, because journalists are weakened, we partnered with our academic institutions in the Philippines. Every week, they took the data and they told our people who was being attacked, meaning you know who's being manipulated, where were the narratives coming from. And the last layer, 6 legal, left, right, and center. Imagine, you cannot have rule of law if you don't have facts. And we needed the legal groups because almost as we launched Facts First PH, my government filed a case against me and Rappler at the Supreme Court. They said fact-checking is prior restraint. See the lawyers, I know who you are, you see. It means they're saying that we're censoring by fact-checking, right? The world is upside down. Anyway, this succeeded. What we found when we mapped it in the Philippines was there were 4 major clusters of groups. We mapped both the narratives that spread and the networks that spread them. And we found that if you cluster around news, you tend to work together, you get the same information and the worldview. Artists tended to stick together. Activists, not a surprise, tended to stick together. But the one that I loved, faith. The Philippines is Asia's largest Roman Catholic nation. And the cluster of faith was important. If religious leaders do not lead during this time, you have cults forming, right? And then this is part of the reason when Pope Francis called us together, the Nobel Peace Prize winners, I went, and in 2 years, I went to the Vatican 4 times in 2 years because faith is like emotion. It's faith, right? But it can be manipulated, and we're seeing this globally, right? A lot of the conflicts all around the world Russia is continuing to attack Ukraine. Gaza continues to burn. And of course, which country bombed those sites in Iran? Oh, yeah. Anyway, faith, super important. Here's the moment when we took over the center of the Philippines information ecosystem. The blue are our partners. The orange are called boundary spanners. To each of us here, we are boundary spanners because we come from different parts of the world. And the yellow is the spread, right? We can organize ourselves online. But here's the thing. Because of the design of social media, it takes so much more effort to be able to get the facts out, right? So that's why, what are you willing to sacrifice? But then the flip side is that you can win. Last, tech, right? Most people will just throw their hands up in the air and say, what can we do? Everyone is here. They attack me. Well, we built a public interest tech stack. About 3 years ago, I got tired of begging big tech to actually respect the facts. None of the technology that rules our world today is anchored in facts. So deliberative technology actually takes the facts, and we chose something called the Matrix Protocol. Yes, it's not the red pill versus the blue pill. The Matrix Protocol was built in 2014, and those governments that care about data privacy, the French government, the German government, all their government websites are on the Matrix Protocol, and I'll show you some of it. By building a news use case on the Matrix Protocol, we challenged we fixed these problems, the 3. These are the way we solved these problems, right? What is it? There are already 150 million addressable users on the Matrix Protocol. It's been around since 2014. There's a foundation that does it. It's in the UK. But more than that, look at who uses the Matrix Protocol. Countries, armies, intelligence agencies, huge companies. What about me? You, normal people. We need to protect ourselves. This is not a free speech issue. It is a safety issue. This is what you can do on the Matrix Protocol. If Bob follows Rappler, so now this is like an idea of a global federation of news organizations. Bob follows Rappler, NRK, Alice follows NRK, and then BBC, partner.com is BBC. Dan follows BBC. Alice, Dan, and Bob can talk to each other without the news groups ever sharing their data. We don't want to exploit you. We want to give you the ability to make up your own mind. So we know this. We stress tested it in our last elections. Real people talking to real people in a shared reality, right? And you can bridge. We don't have to get off big tech because you're addicted. You are addicted. So we can bridge it and bring you to the Matrix Protocol. We can also move and create chatbots that are anchored in facts. That means all of the lectures, of the Nobel lectures, we can put them in a data lake and put the right schema on ontology and have the machine work with real people on facts. And we've rolled this out. The reason I'm telling you this is you can try it now because we ran our elections on the matrix protocol. We launched it. December, Christmas, everyone is sleeping, so if it fell apart, no one would know except me. But it's been over a year. It stress tested in our last elections, and it is working. So our challenge, the Norwegian, your public broadcaster, is the first news group to leave Facebook. So come join us. We need to find information integrity. We need to find a future where we're not being manipulated. That's our goal. Build communities of action the same way the Nobel Peace Center is building a community around wonderful ideas. We need facts, truth, and trust. You can try it. I'll leave it here. Try it, Android or iOS. I have a journal there, and I actually write and say things. And guess what? In over a year, we have, it's like our 10 Commandments is exactly what you would do here in the physical space. And in that time period, we've only banned 3 accounts. Real people can be good people. I believe in the good. In Sweden, I finally gave the T-shirt that I've held up at the Nobel Lecture in 2021, right? In order to be the good, you have to believe there is good in the world. So be the good in orange and believe there is good in the world. This makes me believe there is good in the world. Thank you.